From Penang. I would like to ask you about the exponential growth in the alternate coin, as you know.
Which coin?
Alternate coin. Because, as you mentioned earlier, we have more than 1,005 cryptocurrency available in the market.
Yes.
Right? Does it pose a threat to Bitcoin?
Very good. Does the growth of altcoins pose a threat to Bitcoin? No. No. And maybe. I don't know. But let's look at it and analyze it. It's a great question. In itself, no. And one of the interesting things here is that if you look at currencies in a traditional form, how many currencies existed in the world before January 3rd, 2009? 192 currencies. 192 currencies that belong to 192 nation states, sovereigns, right? Now, in a world where currencies belong to a specific geography and a specific nation state, and those nation states are engaged in competitive behavior, the rise of one currency usually means it rises vis-a-vis the other currencies that are not rising, dropping, right? It's a zero-sum game, or it's a game whose upper bound, its upper growth, is maybe the maximum increase in the global economy that can happen. So it's become normal for us when we look at currencies to see them as competitors, where one can only succeed at the failure of another, because we see nation states that way. My country wins if your country loses. It's not actually true. Economics isn't a zero-sum game. Countries gain from trade more than they lose to each other. They all gain. The pie gets bigger, even though the shares of the pie get redistributed. But we are accustomed to thinking of this as a zero-sum game. In cryptocurrencies, it's not like that at all. And one of the interesting things is that if everybody can make a cryptocurrency, how many cryptocurrencies will there be? So there's 1,500 now that I know of, or that are listed in most of the places. There's probably another couple thousand that I've never heard of that still exist. I can make one in an afternoon. What happens when all of you here can make a cryptocurrency in an afternoon? How many of you will? I will. Right? What happens is that cryptocurrency leaves the realm of traditional currencies. It's no longer a zero-sum game. It's something that is a form of personal expression. So, in the age where we had newspapers, we could say, well, how many big newspapers can a country have? 3, 4, 5? And maybe if a new newspaper starts, it can only win because other newspapers lose readership. So it's a zero-sum game. And then blogging came along. And then you start asking the question, well, how many bloggers can there be? And the answer is simple. 7.6 billion. There can be 7.6 billion. And you can be a blogger, and you can be a blogger, and you can be a blogger, and we can all be bloggers. And if we're all bloggers, that doesn't mean that others can't be. Everyone can. Right? And it doesn't mean that the newspapers go away either. They just have to compete. So what happens in a world where anyone could create a cryptocurrency? You could be a central banker, and you could be a central banker, and you can have your own currency. And children will start creating currency in kindergarten. They already create money. They use blocks and cards and rubber bands and colorful tokens. Human beings do commerce as a natural activity of socialization. And as part of that, human beings create currency when they don't have currency. We see this. So, what happens when a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old can use their mobile device? Because, I know a few 3 or 4-year-olds, and any surface that has glass, they go like this, and they expect it to do something, right? What happens when that generation of toddlers can create a global, scalable, unforgeable currency? When they can be a central banker and issue a sovereign Maria, sovereign Joey, the 4-year-old, who created Joey Coin and distributed it in their kindergarten. Everybody can have a currency. So all of these currencies are going to continue to evolve. Most of them will have zero value. The point of creating a currency is no longer a matter of economic value. The question is, does it have social value? Does it have popularity value? What happens when Taylor Swift creates a currency? Or Beyonce? Now, you may think this is funny, but Beyonce coin today would be bigger than the GDP of at least 30 countries. I am not joking. Do the math, right? And so we will start seeing currencies being used as tokens of loyalty and fans, as measures of celebrity, as forms of social interaction and expression. Artists will create coins, and they already are doing that. I have a friend who has her own coin, and she's a music artist. She's a singer, songwriter, and composer. And she has her own coin, which she uses to reward her fans for coming to her shows. Now, what we have to think about is these currencies are no longer like the old national currencies. The whole space has opened up. And they're not in a zero-sum competition. They can all coexist. Most of them will be worthless. It doesn't matter. All right, let me take